Ethan Graves leaned against the hood of his car, staring at the glowing sign of one of his fast food locations. The sun was starting to dip, casting long shadows over the parking lot. It was late afternoon, and the familiar buzz of the drive-through orders and walk-in customers filled the air. On paper, everything looked good. His business was thriving. 10 stores across the region, steady profits, a loyal customer base. But as he stood there, something felt off. The complaints had been piling up. It wasn't just a couple of bad reviews here and there. Customers had started writing about rude employees, slow service, and orders being wrong more often than not. Ethan's gut told him something was off. But it wasn't until he started paying attention that he realized what was really happening. Ethan had built this business from the ground up. He'd started with nothing, built it brick by brick, store by store, and it had become the success it was today. But somewhere along the way, he'd lost touch. He hadn't set foot in one of his stores in over a year. He was spending all his time in meetings, reviewing reports, strategizing growth. The stores? Well, they were run by managers, and the employees? Most of them had never even met him. Ethan wasn't naive. He knew that once a business reached a certain size, it became harder to keep track of everything. But the fact that he had no idea what was going on in his own stores, that bothered him. So, in a rare moment of clarity, he decided to do something about it. He decided to go undercover. Ditching his usual polished suit for a pair of faded jeans, a hoodie, and a baseball cap, Ethan disguised himself. He'd been growing a scruffy beard for weeks, and now, his face didn't even resemble the sharp, confident CEO the employees would know from corporate memos. To them, he was just another customer. Walking into the restaurant, the first thing Ethan noticed was the smell. Fried chicken and French fries. Comfort food. But the energy was off. He could feel it in his bones. The cashier, a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Maria, barely glanced at him as he approached the counter. "Welcome," she muttered flatly, not bothering to smile. "Hi," Ethan said casually. "Can I get a number 3 combo, extra sauce?" Maria punched it into the register without looking up. $8.99, she said, handing him the total without any enthusiasm. Ethan handed her a $10 bill, and as she fumbled with the change, a loud voice boomed from the back of the kitchen. "Maria, hurry it up. You're slower than a sloth in winter." Ethan's head snapped toward the back of the restaurant. A man, probably in his mid-30s, wearing a manager's uniform, was glaring at Maria. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had an air of arrogance that immediately rubbed Ethan the wrong way. Maria's cheeks flushed red as she fumbled with the cash drawer. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "I'm sorry doesn't cut it," the man barked. "You're lucky I haven't fired you yet. God knows why I even keep you around." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. He watched Maria's hands tremble as she handed him his change, her eyes refusing to meet his. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked quietly, but Maria just nodded and hurried off to bag another order. As Ethan stepped aside to wait for his food, the manager sauntered up to the counter, a fake smile plastered on his face. "Hey, buddy," he said, leaning over the counter. "Sorry about the wait. You know how hard it is to get good help these days." Ethan raised an eyebrow, unsure how to respond. Before he could say anything, the manager leaned in closer. "Between you and me," he said, his voice lowering conspiratorially, "Maria's a lost cause. Always messing up orders, dragging her feet. But corporate won't let me fire her. Something about needing to keep diversity numbers up." He rolled his eyes. Ethan's heart dropped. The casual cruelty of the statement hit him like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just that Maria was being berated, it was that she was being dismissed, reduced to a statistic, treated like she didn't matter at all. He clenched his jaw, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Isn't it your job to train her if she's struggling?" The manager snorted. "Train her? I don't have time to babysit." He slapped the counter and walked off without another word. Ethan stood there, seething, his mind racing. The manager's words, Maria's trembling hands, the indifferent attitude of the rest of the staff, it was all too much. He noticed that Maria was the only one cleaning tables, running orders, and handling the register while the other employees stood around chatting. Customers were growing visibly frustrated at the slow service, but no one seemed to care. No one but Maria, who kept her head down, working tirelessly despite the constant criticism. Ethan watched as she handled a rude customer with patience, apologized profusely when an order was delayed though it wasn't her fault, and kept on going. She clearly cared about her job, about the customers, but she was being treated like dirt. The final straw came when Maria accidentally dropped a tray of food. The manager stormed over, his voice booming loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. "Are you completely useless? You're costing me money." Maria looked close to tears, but she bent down without saying a word, cleaning up the mess. Ethan couldn't take it anymore. His fists clenched, his heart raced. He had come to observe, but what he had witnessed was worse than he could have imagined. This wasn't just bad service. This was a toxic environment. Ethan stood up abruptly, leaving his tray of half-eaten food behind. He didn't have a plan yet, but he knew he couldn't walk away without doing something. He walked toward the counter where the manager was now leaning against the soda machine, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. The sight made Ethan angrier. Maria was still on the floor, picking up the scattered food, her movements slow and hesitant. A couple of customers glanced at her sympathetically, but no one stepped in to help. Ethan walked up to the manager. "Hey," he said, his voice sharp. The manager looked up, clearly startled. "Yeah, what's up?" he asked, cocking his head. "You're the manager here, right?" Ethan asked, keeping his tone calm but firm. "Yeah, that's me," the manager replied, puffing out his chest slightly. "Why? Is there a problem?" Ethan gestured toward Maria, who was still cleaning the floor. "That's the problem," he said, his voice low but steady. "The way you've been treating her." The manager's expression darkened. "Look, buddy, I don't know who you think you are, but this is none of your business. She's my employee, and I'll handle her however I see fit." Ethan took a step closer, lowering his voice so only the manager could hear. "It is my business when someone is humiliated in front of a room full of people. Do you think that's leadership?" The manager blinked, caught off guard by Ethan's intensity, but he quickly recovered, smirking. "What are you, some kind of corporate watchdog? Go finish your fries, and let me do my job." Ethan clenched his jaw but didn't say anything. He knew that confronting the manager directly, as a customer, wouldn't accomplish much. But he had to see more. He needed to understand how deep this problem really ran. So, he turned and walked out of the restaurant, making sure to catch Maria's eye on the way out. She looked up briefly, her face etched with exhaustion and embarrassment. But she quickly returned to her task, her shoulders hunched. Ethan made a mental note to speak with her later, under different circumstances. He knew something had to change and soon. The next day, Ethan returned to the same location, but this time, he was in a deeper disguise. He wore a food delivery driver's uniform, complete with a branded cap and thermal bag. It was a role he knew would allow him to move freely through the restaurant without drawing too much attention. As he entered, he spotted the manager whose name tag read Carl, yelling at another employee, a teenager no older than 16. The boy was struggling to carry a large box of frozen food into the back room. "Come on, Kevin, what are you, a toddler? Use your legs," Carl barked, shaking his head in frustration. Kevin mumbled an apology, his face red with exertion. Carl muttered something under his breath and walked off. Ethan approached Kevin, who was placing the box down with a heavy thud. "Hey kid, you okay?" Ethan asked quietly. Kevin glanced up, startled. Yeah, I'm fine. Just trying to keep up, you know." "Is he always like that?" Ethan asked, nodding toward Carl. Kevin hesitated before shrugging. "Pretty much. He's worse when the store's busy, but I need the job, so I just deal with it." Ethan's chest tightened as he listened. He thanked Kevin and made his way to the back, where Maria was restocking shelves. "Hey, Maria," Ethan said softly. She looked up, her face lighting up in faint recognition. "Yeah. I saw how Carl treated you yesterday. Has it always been like that?" Maria's eyes darted to the door, as if expecting Carl to burst in at any moment. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I just do my job and try to stay out of his way." Ethan's heart sank. "You shouldn't have to work under those conditions," he said firmly. Maria sighed. "It's not just me. He's hard on everyone, but people need the hours, so we don't say anything. It's not like corporate cares." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He was corporate, and he hadn't had a clue what was happening in his own stores. He nodded, his mind racing. "Thank you for telling me. I promise things are going to change." Maria gave him a skeptical look, but didn't respond. Later that evening, as Ethan sat in his car scribbling notes, he knew he had seen enough. The problems weren't limited to just Carl. The entire store was operating under a culture of fear and indifference, with employees too afraid to speak up and management too complacent to care. Ethan made a decision. It was time to reveal himself. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the restaurant earlier than usual, dressed in his typical business attire. He entered the store and asked to speak with the manager. Carl appeared a few minutes later, clearly annoyed. "Can I help you?" he asked. Ethan extended his hand. "Ethan Graves, CEO." Carl's face went pale, and his eyes darted to the door, as if considering an escape route. But he quickly forced a smile. "Oh wow, Mr. Graves. What a surprise. Let's talk in the office." Inside the cramped office, Ethan wasted no time. "I came here undercover this week," he said, his voice calm but firm. "And what I saw was unacceptable. You don't respect your employees, and that reflects poorly on this company. Effective immediately, you're terminated." Carl's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but he didn't argue. He knew there was no point. After Carl left, Ethan gathered the staff in the dining area. Maria, Kevin, and the rest of the team looked confused but curious. "I'm Ethan Graves, the CEO of this company," he began. "This week, I went undercover to see what was really happening in my stores. What I saw here was unacceptable. No one should feel disrespected or undervalued at their job." He turned to Maria. "Maria, your work ethic and dedication haven't gone unnoticed. From today forward, you'll be promoted to shift supervisor with a pay raise to match." Maria's eyes widened. "Wait, what? Are you serious?" "Completely," Ethan said with a smile. "You've earned it." Ethan turned back to the rest of the team. "Changes are coming. You'll all receive proper training, better schedules, and a safe environment to work in. And if anyone ever feels mistreated, my door is always open." The room erupted in applause. Maria wiped away tears of relief as Ethan left the store that day, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. But this wasn't just about profits. It was about people. And Ethan knew he wouldn't stop until he'd made things right. What do you think? Should Ethan have handled things differently? Do you think companies like his should do more to support employees? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions.